and I can see that we are live. Still not seeing you there. So, as usual, as we already know, those of you that come to watch this, I will make the following operation of copy paste. Let's hope that this can happen, because I can't see. Oh, now I'm seeing. Yes, I'm seeing that it indeed can happen, and I'll do so. And I'm seeing you, Julieta. Yes, one more time. Thank you so much for stopping by again and again. Yes, because you are very present in these lives. I'm grateful for it. So now we are in. I'm sorry. Good evening. Thank you so much for stopping by. For those of you who may not know, we are going to talk about purpose-driven angles, perspectives, worldviews that can put some added flesh and strength and fullness onto our own path of striving for ever more authenticity, truthful, creative expression of ourselves that we, by incident, tend to call as living or searching and expressing our purpose, our life purpose, individually or in organizations, in groups, whatever context that may be. If it is a choice, our choice, to put our own very best into it, it is purposeful, it is purpose driven, it is able to sustain our duly expression. And the challenge in the days that we are living in, really, in my perspective, is the challenge of creating, acknowledging, and really sustaining those contexts, those spaces, choices, relationships, whatever type of element, role, process, system, whatever ingredient that we find needed for us to cook the dish of our truthful expression. And of course, we already know that this can be quite a challenge. This can be quite a challenge these days, because notwithstanding we expressing ourselves ever more in purposeful driven language, because purposeful and purpose really is getting ever more into the mainstream type of speech, because we hear talking about purpose many times, and it is commonplace language, even going beyond the self-help or the personal development or the human development space. We hear about purpose ever more, to the point of it becomes somewhat cliched these days. Like everybody use the word purpose and purpose this and purpose that, and it can sound like trivial stuff, somewhat shallow and superficial in the sense. And so one of the goals, I guess, in these lives, at least for me, in my perspective, it is an intent that I have to really convey the deeper layers of purpose, and how can we think, at least according to my own practice, about purpose as a lens to perceive and to engage with all there is in life. Because if we tend to put purpose into a pedestal, in a sense, and it is a nice inclination, of course, I really believe so, at least it's my perspective. So we must make the truthful move of making it as real, of walking the talk, of trying to grasp what are those venues for our much needed creative, authentic expression of ourselves, and which in fact it's all that our awareness can perceive as life. In my, of course, in my perspective also, but I can only speak from myself. And you have been witnessing in these lives that I tend to bring forth a set of understanding, sources, mostly books, of course, personal histories and other histories, a bunch of narratives, if you prefer, or a bouquet of narratives, if you like the metaphor, in order to somewhat give us the scent, the perfume of what really is to create from the inside out, in the sense that we tend to still, although we talk about purpose, we still have a set of pattern responses to life as such that really tend to block or prevent our really purposeful driven expressions, because talking about purpose is really different from really engaging in purposeful driven ways, and we tend to sometimes I really see this. I don't know what is your opinion. Please put it in the remarks if you want. Make your comment, your question, share what your thoughts about it. But in my perspective, we tend to see many purpose in the speech, in the wording, in the mouth these days. But are that speech going into practice really into sustained structural principles driven type of behavior? Do we see it at the level of manifestation that it should be? Well, I believe not. Although, of course, I do believe that we are getting better in that sense of putting ourselves at the spotlight of our own lives, or in the driver's seat of our own life vehicle, if you prefer that metaphor. Although we tend to recognize that, although we may have, and we have, of course, a significant, a major acting role into the driving of our own lives, we tend to get the sense, at least that's my own experience, when I dive into purpose, we tend to get the deeper experience that in fact we can make some significant, and we make, of course, some significant, really significant choices in several moments and landmarks which are in our path, but really the driving force, the deeper force that drives us, it's beyond our understanding, it's beyond our choice, beyond our predicament, if you like. I really prefer not to call it God, although I use it in private terms, that word. But when we publicly speak about God, many people still have that beard old guy sitting into a throne, sending some lightning or some maddening or some evil or good and evil decrees according to some sort of completely out of rationality perspective. And that's not the case. That's not the case. I do believe in a bigger pattern that we may call like a divine plan, if you prefer to use that language. It really amounts to overall pattern of existence that is beyond our human sense perception and cognitive process awareness and grasping, but yet that it can be, and it can be very, very felt. And I'm making this preamble to our transmission for some reason that I can't discern right now, but I believe it can make some meaning, on you if you are listening and watching this. And the theme is really ties, cutting and creating. It's the title of it. Of course, I'm thinking about those ties that bonds us, that connects us into different life forms. And of course, if you think about, we can see it in every single team, and the most significant is the relationship ties, of course, in terms of our own choice possibilities. And because, of course, if we think about those ties in terms of the biological, in the natural sense, we can see it with much more clarity, that are stuff that is going beyond our own free will, if you like. And making a statement right up front, I'm not a believer in free will. I believe in partial free will, if you like. I believe in conditioned free will, which is a paradox, of course, because if it's conditioned, it's not free. Because in our own, and of course, I believe that's the main worldview that you should consider in watching me speaking about this ties subject as such, because I really believe that being free demands from the subject considered as free a degree of pervasive all awareness and control, if you prefer, that it's not possible for us humans as such. According to my definition of what is freedom. So, as such, freedom is subject to certain conditions, context conditions, relationship conditions, resources, all sorts of elements, dynamics, processes, overall systems in which those decisions are taking place and are made of. And as such, I really believe in conditional free will. And so, this is the paradox that we humans must live, that acknowledging that, by definition, our will is conditioned by our own circumstances, state and level of awareness, resources and means for sustaining and expressing ourselves. Because it's not the same thing expressing me here on a Facebook Live. It's different from expressing me on a coffee table or a coffee shop or in an office or in a general NATO assembly, making some fantasy around this, or of course just having or not having health, physical health, having or not having a good night's sleep, having or not having a partnership, a life partner, a romantic partner, a familial type of partnership, whatever it may be, friendship. So, aren't these obvious signs that our will can be free to an extent? Well, in my perspective, yes. And we can argue, yes, Julie, but given those very set of conditions, we still have a lot of freedom that many of us don't use. Because we engage in destructive behaviors that we can change, because we are bound to some sort of habits and vices and chosen troubles, in a sense, that we can choose to change. We can say enough is enough, and then we make the wheel turn. Yes, I agree. And in that space of agreeableness with that idea, we can talk about ties cutting and creating. Yes. So, first and foremost, we all are here because of these dynamics. Because if we think about the very same process of creating a human being, and you can acknowledge that there is a gift from the masculine realm of life, whatever form it may take onto life, because it can be in the vegetable realm, animal realm, human realm, doesn't matter. It is a release of a seed from the masculine, the positive polarity of life, that translates and that shifts, transits to the feminine realm of life, to be nurtured, to be sustained, to be engaged in another matrix. And matrix really amounts to uterus in Latin. I believe I've said that in a past life. And as such, what happens? There is a cutting from a source of energy, and then a new bond creating, or tie creating, if you prefer, into a different set of conditions. And in that movement, there is what? There is the possibility of getting or not getting there. And this is the whole dynamic beyond every single type of transition, including life purpose type of transitions. If you think about this movement that can explain how humans are birthed, how a flower is born, or a plant that makes the flower blossoming in its due time, of course, or in animals. And in purposeful professional transitions, for instance, when you are thinking, okay, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start another thing, that's one way of doing it. I'm going to get another job. 90+% of quitting job is finding another job. So the numbers say. But it's not the only way. You can quit your job and begin your own business. You can quit your job and freelancing. You can quit your job and do nothing for a time until you figure out what you want to do. And then you make a new beginning. So and this is really amounts to an art and science, if you prefer, because it's like a dance between two realms, between the realm of understanding a process and the realm of living it, of dancing with life, with the unpredictability of life, uncertainty of life, of course. And this is the archetype, the mental model, if you prefer, because I'm talking about it, so it has a mental dimension in it, that really explains how we can cutting a bond and create a new bond. And of course, this very same thing can relate with our every dimension in life. Think about relationships. Okay, I'm married to the person, or I'm having an affair or a relationship, no matter what role we can express. But then, okay, this is not working, this is not the thing that I think it should be. Will I put some more energy trying to ignite this thing? To reignite, to renew it? Or will I leave the thing? Okay, if I'm going to leave, what I'm going to do? Am I going to leave directly to another type of similar relationship? That's the given state of choice for the majority of us, for sure. Because the personal development, the human development realm, what says is simple. Please, before we change relationships, in very general terms, what states the prevailing conventional good advice is, please, before you cut a relationship, take your time for yourself, get used to being well with yourself, heal yourself, acknowledge, take awareness about the things that didn't work out so well, and of course be grateful for the things that did work out in the past relationship, and then you naturally, organically take the life synchronicity type of perspective and wait for the appropriate or right person to fall into your lap. That's the way. Now I'm seeing your comment, Julieta, and I will begin after reading it. I agree there are limits, conditions to our freedom. I risk saying it would be overwhelming if free will was possible at full 100% free will. That carries a lot of responsibility, in my opinion. That's the million-dollar question, in my perspective. Considering how much we need to navigate and understand ourselves to know better, quote unquote, just saying I wouldn't have the tools to cope. Well, you are stressing, and thank you for your comment, you are stressing one of the remarks that are neuroscience backed, in the sense of us humans getting so many stimuli around us that it's nearly impossible for us to navigate the world as such if a certain type of filtering makeup that we have in our sense perceptions and cognition processes aren't set in place, because we would go mad with the unsurmountable and unspeakable richness that life is, that will take charge, and that would make us completely paralyzed. And that's, at least in my perspective, that really is one of the reasons of one of the famous remarks of Mr. Bertrand Russell tends to be very truthful. That it's the remark that the problem of the world, one of the problems of the world, is that stupid people are very confident to act, and intelligent people are not so confident to act. And this is not the exact phrasing, but that's the point. But this expresses that truth that you are saying, because it is the fullness of awareness of the responsibility to act and to really exert our freedom. It can be quite a preventive device. And yes, and that's why also is so important for us to make the dance between acting and reflecting, acting and reflecting, acting and reflecting. And I know it by my own experience. If you take too much time into just reflecting and putting some nice narratives in order to justify that just reflecting with other types of stories that make you feel okay, but in practice don't work so well, then you are on a vicious cycle, and then your ability to really discover more of your goodness, of your truthfulness expression, really is diminished and really is put in jeopardized. On the other hand, there really is context, there really are contexts and circumstances and projects and intents that really ask the very long view type of perspective in order to make themselves real. And of course, depending on the degree of risk, it really could jeopardize the process if you go too soon, if you don't know how to make the balance between procrastinating and acting, or between patience and assertiveness, proactiveness, because those are not set in stone. And depending on really the purpose taking place, those can really be a whole world of a difference from one person to the other. And that's why it is so important for us to understand the fundamentals, to understand the deeper principles onto it all. I don't know if I make a remark that can attest some of that comment of yours. Like I was saying, and that's the dance about getting and cutting, creating ties, about relationships with other people. No matter what type of relationship it may be. But of course, thinking about the romantic terms, it's the most challenging for many people because they think they sense the weight of all the life constructs that came with having a romantic union. And the more if you are aware, or if you have a degree of awareness beyond simply plugging and into the conventional pattern of living, because as such you don't have to make big reflections. You go to school, take a good course, finish it, get a job, then you find a girlfriend, you get married, or a boyfriend, get married, have children, blah blah blah, and you streamline your life, just like it's just like a statistical reality, because you check it by statistical marks, and you see it, the marks, the cycles, the landmarks, the milestones are all there, and that's a statistical reality. But especially the individualized person, the person who is onto a path of living their individuality, and especially in transitional contexts, and we as a society, yes, we as a society are at this very moment in a transitional moment, in a transitional context. As such, models of expression and behavior are not what they used to be, because people can't put their feet in front of the other if the ground is different. The ground is shaken. If you have an earthquake and then you are walking in the street and it makes a big breach, of course you can. Are you going towards the breach and fall into the... No, of course not. You must make a different path. And so this is an image, I believe, that can express why so many people, even living, trying to live, trying to adhere, even preferring to have a conventional life, because we all want to belong, we all want to make things that make easier for us to feel loved, to feel cherished, to feel acknowledged as such. But then, if the conditions are not met in one way or the other, things change, and we change, and we understand, okay, maybe the tie cutting really amounts to cutting and creating ties between different worldviews, between different life paths, because that's what it's all about. Between living a set of values that represents me in opposition or contrast with another set of values that doesn't represent me. Or not to make too much of a simplistic argument, to see that some division, major division of life perspectives, some of it have prevalence of values that I cherish, and the other don't. And as such, I want to distance myself from that and unplug myself, or participate myself, or co-create with those that are already living it and having a role onto that. And that's the main issue, that's the main thing. That's not really amounts to this. What is the degree of compass that I have from the inside out, and what is the degree of trust that I have in that compass, in order for me to understand what should I cut and what should I create or co-create in the sense of transitioning, for sure. And then, of course, there are many dimensions of life that make things much more complicated than simply making a Facebook live transmission speaking about this, because it is on the life dance that really we feel and really we acknowledge that we may want to make things one way, but we sense things in a different way, and then different narratives can arise. And of course, the field where I personally, by experience, personal experience, and by listening and knowing other stories, the field which is subject to more, I would say, earthquakes these days, are the field of intimate relationships. In that sense, and family relationships, yes, also. Because they tend to bring forth the most needed challenges for change, for transformation, in each and every one of the people involved. And as such, of course, people tend to question why did I fall in love for that person, or why did I have that type of kid. And today is the Kids Day. I'm very happy in my own perspective of that realm of dimension of the kids, because I'm still at the stage, and I don't live with my kids. I'm in the stage of listening to things that and participating in a way, and never have the sense of getting challenges beyond my ability to deal with those, even when we live together. And I don't believe it's just a matter of my own awareness. I believe it's a matter of luck, in a sense, and life cycle in another, because he is an infant, yes, still. And there are many factors. But those are the things that really challenge our understanding about life, and the invitation is really to love deep. Learn how to love deep. And learning how to love deep really amounts to understand that what Leonardo da Vinci said, it really is true. If we want to love better, we must learn how to understand better the thing and the otherness, no matter if it's a person or a reality, that we love. And if we want to know better, and that's the dance, that's the polarity, that's the apparent paradox, we must learn how to love better. If you want to understand better, you must learn how to understand. And this translates into many realms of life. Because if you think about how people tend to bond and commune between them, people tend to get synchronistic experiences between them when they are really into each other. And one of the reasons, one of the remarks, one of the signs of understanding, if of reciprocity, mutuality as such, is really to get or not if that type of synchronicity, that type of sense of awareness is shared or not. And really amounts many times to acknowledge that it is not shared, or that it is shared according to our own biases, according to our own expectancy projections onto the other, according to our own needs and wants. And of course, past hurts, baggage, memories, education, parenthood, unfortunately, and especially mostly bad parenthood, in terms of the biases. I'm speaking in terms of the biases, of course, because we know that parenthood gives a model for every type of relationship. that there is, because it's the pervasive model onto our society for us understanding how the dynamic of the dance between the masculine and the feminine play into our world. And it's not to blame our parents. At least in my own worldview, it's not, because it really is a synchronistical agreement that was made between every participant in order for those expressions to manifest. Oh, Julio, does it make it right that a parent beats or rapes a girl? No, of course it doesn't make it right. That's not what I'm saying. I don't say that it was the specific personality of the child choosing that type of stuff, just going right directly to the most difficult type of arguments around this idea. No, the thing that I'm saying is this. If we want to acknowledge the universe as a whole, we as humans need to give a meaning that is productive for us to move forward. And I know for sure and from experience that no matter how hard, no matter how dark, no matter how tough our parents and family people expressions are towards us, we only tend, it's for our own prejudice to hold a grudge and to not trying to understand the other, because we humans are really able to do unspeakable things. Yes, it's true, we are able to do unspeakable things. If our nature is twisted and perverted and put in a spot that really feels like we have no choice. And that's the tragedy of being a human. The way I see it, at least, and the way I can articulate it at this moment. Because I'm not the owner of the truth. I don't believe in that. One of the things that really disengages me from any type of content in the human development space is when people say, here comes the one and only perspective for you to deal with that issue. That's the almost certain recipe. Of course, it depends on I'm making some sort of extreme expression now, just to illustrate the point. But there are no single ways of expressing, even if there is just a unified principle that explains life as it is. There are several ways of expressing the very same principle, and that's of course, and that calls forth our free will, or in doing so, or our free conditioned will, or conditioned free will, just to make it a little more exact. Although I know this can be quite annoying for some people, because some people have that rebellion side inside of them, and although they can get the idea, they really don't like. Those are the extremes. Some set of people, the rebellious type of people, really don't like to think about any sort of conditioning as such, and so they tend to dismiss the idea of conditioned free will as nonsense, because I can only change my attitude, I'm always able to do this and that and that, and those are the other things that say, oh, no worth it, I can do it, I will not change things. And I've been dealing all my life with those both extremes, of listening every single day as a sort of, I don't know how to call it, but as a hanging space, like, oh, it doesn't worth it, or oh, who cares, this perspective. And then we can see other type of perspective in the more libertarian sense of it, that, oh, We can change everything, right? And that all of those are extremes. Yes, we need to make negotiations with reality as we speak. And so ties cutting and creating in terms of life purpose, of course, and maybe I'm making too much of a context in this live, and pardon me if it's making you impatient to hear the theme, but here's the theme. The theme is very simple. We have this pattern, really is the pattern of transition, and for a transition to happen, if you are fond of, or if you are not, you are going to be fond of the author, which is Mr. I believe it's right beside me. Yes, Mr. William Bridges. It's the name of the guy tells it all. Yes, Mr. Bridges wrote 2 major books, and those are behind me. Transitions, making sense of life changes, and managing transitions, making the most of change. The first one is for life transitions, and the second is for company transitions, organizational change. And the idea is this, very, very, very simple. The archetype, the model for the transitions is first make an ending, then went into a space of possibilities, of exploring if you want, and then make a new beginning, unplug to a new reality. And so that's another way of saying how you can tie cut and create between realities. The secret, the major secret in order for all of this to work, in my not only perspective, but really truthful experience, is this: the connection to the never-ending realm of possibilities of present awareness. And I'm stressing this point live after live after live, and I will continue to do so, no matter what, how many lives I will make. In the present moment, what we perceive as emptiness, in fact, is the fullness of life, like Mr. Eckhart Tolle put it very well. And of course, all the Buddhist teachers, Buddhist teachings, yoga, practicing also, and many other contemplative practices that we can and we will find in Western societies, in ancient teachings such as Kabbalah, such as Sufism, including esoteric Christianity, etc., etc. What we perceive as emptiness really is fullness, is from that place or no place that life really shines forth. The seed is made, the seed of the good decision, the seed of the balanced emotional state, the seed of intellectual creativity, the seed of new good ideas, the seed of having the universe dance in, through, and by you comes from that. And of course, when the structures are unstable, when you try to walk into patterned type of way, you tend to fall down if you don't have the awareness, sense, perception, practice somewhat evolved. As such, it is in times like this that we really need to keep our internal eye well opened to the very best of our ability, and to really connect and reconnect with that internal eye, and going beyond our biases, going beyond our worldviews, going beyond our search for content, from exploration, exploration, because unfortunately, I believe it's not an accident that the word exploitation pops out again, and I will talk about it now. Because exploitation really still is the current mode of engagement between people these days. Sorry to say so, but it is true. In relationships, in all sorts of relationships, people still went without autonomic, energetic sense, which amounts to they are not autonomous in getting energy beyond sucking the other, whatever other may be. It may be not a person, it's a consumption type of mentality, not only from objects, but from people also. And as such, that's a major signaling that we all must be very careful, must be very attentive, because it's system embedded. It's not a fault from the person A, person B, person C. It's system embedded. Until we change the system, and the system depends on our awareness, of our consciousness, for sure. So that's the first step, that's the first stopping stage. It's changing the awareness in systemic terms in order to understand the implications, the nodes of relation of the network of codependency. In an illegitimate terms, because we all are dependent of one another. That's what life is about, is being dependent. But the vampire archetype, and we know it's pervasive in our culture. We see it many ages ago, like in the myths and histories of Transylvania, and then now we still have those in blockbuster Hollywoods about vampires and such. Because, and guess what? Those are still really put into the intimate relationships type of perspective. Because they know, and we know it. Even if unconsciously, we know it. That the realm, the stage of human relationships still is born to those type of things, of type of understandings. I'm sorry, I've eaten a syllable. And that, my friends, my dear friends, that really is the issue with cutting and creating ties. Because when we are resistant of cutting something that we know doesn't work, it amounts to some instances of dependence that are not healthy, dependencies that are not sustainable, dependencies that nurture one people at the expense of the other people. And we can all be part of those things in this system. Not to blame ourselves, not to blame others also, but like Mr. Leonardo da Vinci said, to better love, please better understand. And so that's the invitation. If you want to cut and create ties better, understand better. And of course, acknowledge the ways, acknowledge the examples, the cases in which you are doing it okay, in which you are doing it fine, in which you are putting yourself as you are up front, in which you are giving yourself with no expectation of specific return, nonetheless acknowledging that relationship is mutuality, that relationship is reciprocity. In very operative, practical terms, if we can't have that, we can't have relationship. But we can love, of course, but at a distance, not in the consummation type of love. But ties give the idea of some sort of practical and operative type of love. So The thing is, and of course, we must make ourselves clear enough into our own internal space in order to really get what really matters to us. What does it matter into creating a bond and cutting another? Giving the time for really understand what is the type of world that I want to create or co-create in a new bond, or what is the world that doesn't work in that bond that I want to leave behind, and how will I make the transition? And once more, going beyond cognitive processes, going beyond reflective processes as such. How can I plunge myself into the deep waters of the present moment, go beyond the plans, beyond the cognitions, beyond the studies, the research, all the other worldview type of work that I have already done because I've already studied the place, the market, or the job, or the company, the context. I've taken the book from Mr. Richard Nelson Bowles, and I've studied the petals. I've studied the people I want to work with, the context I want to work with, what type of job that I want to have, what type of liberty, even if conditioned, what type, so on and so on and so on. And I go beyond all those vocational coaching or psychology, all the realm of the practical cognitive reasoning type of sense, and then I go deeply with my gut, with my intuition. And yes, fusing those, the gut with the intuition, one I tend to see as deeper, the gut, and the other I tend to see as higher, the intuition. Deeper interpersonal and broader transpersonal. Of course, the deeper interpersonal is the gut, and the broader transpersonal is the intuition. And of course, go towards life and make things happen. I want to do this, and then I do that. I want to have some sort of expression of myself, even in Karma Yoga. I do it, and that's the way. That's the dance, and we are always learning. It is impossible to get it whole because it's just an ideal, and those who really know it, they know they don't know. That's the thing. And as such, they never lose their subject. They never lose their ability to really love ever more the thing they want to love, the reality they want to create, participate, engage. And that's the thing, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. For today, I'm done. Don't forget, if you are just watching, this is really amounts to a dance that has an archetype, in a sense, that we must create an ending. Then we must make it a walking of exploration of the path. And that walking is just not practical or operative or cognitive. It's deeper, intangible, present moment awareness. And then we can create a new beginning, not forgetting the richness of what is seen coupled with the unseen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for stopping by. And tomorrow we will talk about deep strength. Deep strength, it's the subject of tomorrow's live. Have a nice rest of the evening. Take care. Bye bye.